Hello, everyone. So I wanted to comment on this recent insanity of this police shooting in Dallas, and I really don't want to see race relations turning in an ugly direction, and that's what I see happening. So I'm going to do my part to put out the fire before it starts. A race war would be very bad for my chances of living forever. I hate to pull the current year argument, but I think it's applicable here. It's 2016. Why are people still concerned about race? Like, race. Do you know how petty that is to judge people by what race they are? I mean, why not judge each other by our actions and our ideas? Isn't that what really counts? The shooter of the Dallas police shooting, he said he wanted to kill white people. And especially he wanted to kill white cops.
Our hostage negotiator did an exceptional job getting this suspect to talk before he died, during the hours of negotiating that eventually broke down. And I want to share with you some of the comments from this suspect. The suspect said he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers.
Now, obviously, I understand he represents a very, very small percentage, the kind of racism going on in the black community. But it is a thing, and it is growing. And I think that this racism in the black community is growing a lot because of Black Lives Matter. If you notice, there's actually an interesting parallel between feminism and Black Lives Matter. Like, feminism is pitting men and women against each other, right? And Black Lives Matter I think, is pitting whites and blacks against each other. And what are both of these movements? What do feminism and Black Lives Matter both have in common? They're both movements of the left, right? They're liberal, leftist movements.
It is time for this nation to stand up with one voice and to condemn and shun this movement called Black Lives Matter. I would like to see the Southern Poverty Law Center place Black Lives Matter alongside those other hate groups that were mentioned, these black nationalist groups, the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam. It doesn't mean that those organizations will go away just because they're on that list, but what happens is people start to delegitimize these movements and marginalize them. This movement needs to be marginalized. We have looked at this stuff. We have peeled back the layers. We've looked at the data. We've looked at the research. None of their false narrative about the use of force or about the American police officer can be proved. None of it.
But why,
Zero.
how would that
so
have,
it is
how
time.
would that have helped
But
this?
Megan,
Because this guy wasn't part of Black Lives Matter.
It is time for, he said, according to the chief down there, Chief Brown, he was doing this in the name of Black Lives Matter. He said he wanted to kill white people.
The language was a little different than that. He did say the latter.
Okay, but it is time for the liberal mainstream media, the New York Times editorial board, the CNN, MSNBC, to stop walking on eggshells and giving legitimacy to these rants, to all this false narrative coming out of this Black Lives Matter movement.
So what is this? There's this crazy, force that is trying to divide people. Personally, I think it's time to unite. Okay, black people, white people, men and women, we should all be united against a common enemy, which is Islamic terrorism, the kind of thing that's going on in Europe. We can feel united against that common enemy. So we shouldn't be warring against each other. There's no reason for this. I understand the grievances of black people. I really get it. I was raised to understand and be very aware of slavery It was a real thing. I understand that. Let's take a minute to acknowledge slavery. Here's a little video of my mother, and it just shows in this video how she just breaks down just thinking about slavery. You know, she is so sad about it. She has so much empathy towards those black people who were enslaved.
I'm very passionate about how the blacks have been treated. It breaks my heart. I mean, to think they could go to war for our country and shed their blood for our country, defending its freedoms, and then not even be allowed to fight in a boxing ring or play on a baseball field because their skin is black, or drink from a drinking fountain, or go to a college or a restaurant. It's just deplorable. Like, we treated them like they were less than human. I can't even believe it. So any of them who stood up for their rights, I'm very proud of them. I'm too choked up. Thinking about the blacks coming.
And I think racism, for the most part, is over. Obviously, there's still racists. There's white racists, there's black racists, and this is horrible. Right now, there are children being raised and ingrained and brainwashed to be racists, right? Children of white supremacists, children of black supremacists, and they are being ingrained with these racist ideas. This is horrible. But I think we're almost over with it. Like, maybe there's a little bit more of it, remnants of it in the culture, but for the most part, we don't need to be making this into a bigger deal than it really is. And we don't need to be thinking that there's like a race war. Like, I'm not buying into that at all. And I think that the media overhypes this. They're trying to like push an agenda, a narrative that racism is bigger than it really is. They're trying to like manufacture a problem. And it's the same way with feminism, right? You see all these social justice warriors, all, in campus rape culture, acting like it's such a huge thing, when really the huge problem is in the Islamic culture. That's where the real rape culture is. Like, let's not manufacture and invent problems that don't exist. Let's not turn racism into a bigger issue than it really is. This is my issue with Black Lives Matter and with feminism. I feel like they're trying to, in a way, manufacture a problem so they can be victims. Like, there's this victimhood culture that's being promoted. It's over. Like, we're all equal now. Feminism doesn't need to exist. Black Lives Matter doesn't need to exist. Let's all be equal. By creating these divisions and these movements like feminism that's specifically geared towards women's rights, and Black Lives Matter that's specifically geared towards black people, you're only creating a division. Why not just stand for all lives matter? The more we buy into this idea that there's a race war going on, we're just going to feed into that, and we're going to breed violence. We're going to breed hatred. It could be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people are actually convinced that there's such a problem, they'll make it a problem when it isn't a problem. Yes, I'm sure there are racist cops, and they're going around killing innocent black people. I'm sure that happens. And I'm sure there are probably black cops going around killing innocent white people. Racism is still a thing. I get it. Yes, cops should have body cams. And other than that, what could we do? We body cam the cops. We'll prosecute them when they have been shown to be racist and killing innocent people without a just cause. Let's do that. I'm all for that. But why have this huge movement that is really causing racial division, like Black Lives Matter is. It's like nowadays, if you're not riddled with white guilt, you're almost labeled a racist. And if you're one of those people who talk about this this idea of soft bigotry, of low expectations, it's this term that you see passed around on the internet. And it's just this idea that, look, black people and white people should be held to the same standards. And so a lot of these leftist, liberal type of people are holding the black community to a lower standard. They're expecting less out of the black community. And this is a form of racism. They are the racists. They're the ones who have this soft bigotry of low expectations. And they're, in a way, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy in the black community. Because they're telling them, they're belittling the black community, saying, look, you're going to be committing more crimes and you're going to have all these excuses and this kind of thing. And a lot of black people, they'll talk about this same idea. We're never going to get over racism until we can all be treated as equals and be held to exactly the same standard. Look, the bottom line is, and this should be made very clear, that racism is rooted in irrationality, complete irrationality. Because how stupid is it to judge people for factors that are outside of their own control? People do not choose the color of their skin. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's judge each other for things that matter. Our ideas, our actions. These are things that actually speak to who we are as people. But racism is still alive and well. I don't mean to minimize racism to such an extent to say that it's not there. It definitely is there. And we should always remember that there is hope for racists. I always remember there's this story. There was a documentary I watched a long time ago by Louis Theroux, where there was these Nazis. He visited the Nazis, and there was these two Nazi girls, and these girls were raised and brainwashed to be Nazi white supremacists. And the news followed them up a long time later when they were teenagers, and they were totally unbrainwashed. They totally learned how to be normal, think normally, and not have these ridiculous prejudices. So, there's always hope. You can always be unbrainwashed from this racism, which is great news. But another point I want to make is that I think that the word racist is being diluted. It's losing its meaning because people are way too quick to throw around that term and just label this person a racist and label that. They did it to my roommate. It's like when you call everyone a racist, the whole word loses its value. It's not good. Let's reserve the word racist for people who actually deserve it. One person who I've always respected their perspective on race issues is Raven-Symoné. Raven-Symoné really gets it. Whenever you listen to her interviews, whenever she talks about race, she gets it. She understands that we're progressing as a human race and we don't need to put such emphasis and focus on our race. It's not a big deal. Grow up. And we're human beings. And that's not to say that we're equal as human beings. I don't believe in that we're all equal. You hear this idea that we're all one, everyone's the same. I don't believe that. We're definitely different. Some of us are better than others, but we're not better because of our race. We're better based upon our ideas. It's our ideas that's how we should be separating ourselves and judging each other. And saying, this person, that person is better because they have better ideas and their actions are better. They are more ethical. That is what should be held on the pedestal. We shouldn't have this idea of racial superiority. We should have this idea of idea superiority, behavior superiority. People are superior based upon their ideas and actions. And regardless of your race or your gender identity or whatever factor that's outside of your control, None of that stuff excludes you from participating in the free marketplace of ideas. And may the best ideas win. And please, let's get over this idea of cultural appropriation. Like, why is that a thing? Why is that a thing at all? Why does it matter if one culture is appropriating things from another?
The fact that I have locks does not mean that I'm trying to appropriate anyone's culture. It means that I love and respect their culture, and it's something that I hold true to myself. I feel like these differences are not something that separate us, but are something that should bring us closer together.
And why does it matter that Elysia Banks wants to bleach her skin? Why are people making that such an issue? This was a real thing. Like, it was trending like 3 or 4 days ago. Elysia Banks, the singer, is bleaching her skin, and everyone's making such a big deal about it and acting like she's hating on her own race. You know, in the future, we're all gonna be able to decide our race. Like, technology is going to advance to the point where it doesn't matter what race you are. It'll be like in virtual environments, we'll be able to pick our race at will. Just change our race, whatever. Look, if someone likes whiter skin, that's their preference, so what? And there are white people who want to be black. So what's the big deal?
Maria, o que está acontecendo com você?
Eu quero ser negra.
Você quer ser negra?
Quero.
Por quê?
Porque eu quero.
E por que você quer ser uma negra?
Porque eu acho negra. Porque eu acho pele linda.
Pele branca também é linda.
Eu quero ser negra.
Maria, quando você crescer, você casa com um marido negro e tem um monte de filho negrinho.
Eu quero ser negra.
So, the bottom line is, yeah, I do care about this issue because it does relate to eternal life, okay? I want to live forever, and how am I going to live forever when a huge portion of the population are at war with one another, thinking that there's some race war going on, and they're having all this racial division and strife? No, I want peace. I want peace on Earth. I want races of people to get along, and let's fight the bad ideas. Let's fight the bad ideas like Sharia law. That's what we should be fighting.
As I've said, I think that all religions are wrong in the same way, in that they privilege faith over reason, but they're not all equally bad in the same way all the time. I mean, if I'd been writing in the 1930s, I would certainly have said that the Roman Catholic Church was the most dangerous religion in the world because of its open alliance with fascism and anti-Semitism, which the damage from that our culture has never recovered from and never will. But at the moment, it's very clear to me that the most toxic form that religion takes is the Islamic form. The horrible idea of wanting to end up with Sharia, with a religion-governed state, a state of religious law, and that the best means of getting there is jihad, holy war, and that Muslims have a special right to feel aggrieved enough to demand this, I think is absolute obscene wickedness.
So let's fight evil ideologies. Let's fight any ideology that threatens our safety and ability to live forever, because that is the most important thing.
But I want to go to the crux of this argument. I agree with Donald Trump. I applaud Donald Trump. I do believe as well that Muslims should probably be stopped from coming into the United States until you can figure out a better way of finding out who is against you. I love my neighbors. I enjoy them. But guess what I have on my door? Locks. Guess what I also have? Security system. And cameras. Now, why would I do that if I have no problem with my neighbors? Because I think it's rather stupid for someone to say, let's just leave the doors open and everyone can come in. Now let's make it a little smaller here. Now what if you have a group of people who live in your neighborhood who just don't like you? And right now we have a lot of Muslims who refuse to stand up and say, we don't believe in Sharia law. We don't believe that you should kill Americans. We don't believe that people who don't convert to the religion and don't pay a fine don't deserve death.
Let me just admit, okay? I have a confession to make. I am a very prejudiced person. I think it's about time that I reveal my deep-seated prejudice to the world. I show favoritism to people who I believe have the best chance of living forever. Okay, a person, in my mind, a person that has more potential to live forever, they are more valuable in my eyes. And also, a person who wants to live forever, they are automatically more valuable in my mind. And there's nothing wrong with being prejudiced as long as you're being prejudiced in a good way. Being prejudiced in the right way. So being prejudiced is not really the problem. Being prejudiced is about making a judgment. And, in case you haven't noticed, people are very different. Their ideas are very different. And, there's a common attitude in this world right now, coming from the left, these liberal, regressive people. There's a common attitude that we should be treating all people the same, like they're equal, like all cultures are equal. That's not true, okay? People are not equal. Let's not lose sight of the factors that make some people better than others. Someone who believes that gay people should be thrown off a cliff or a rooftop, anyone who thinks that is much less worthy and less deserving of our respect, right? And, I'm prejudiced against those people who think that.
A Muslim scholar says killing homosexuals is the compassionate thing to do. And he's just hours away from speaking at an Islamic center right here in Central Florida.
Death is the sentence. I mean, look, there's nothing to be embarrassed about this. Death is the sentence.
But he also says the only way gays and lesbians can be forgiven is to die.
Well, we have to have that compassion for people. With homosexuals, the same. Out of compassion, let's get rid of him now.
I'm prejudiced against people who believe that suicide bombing is justified in some cases. I'm prejudiced against anyone who is against Western values. I'm definitely prejudiced against those people. But I think, probably prejudiced is the wrong word. Because let me look it up here. I'm going to look it up. Okay, I looked it up. Okay, prejudice is the wrong word. Because prejudice means a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason. I have really good, valid reasons for being against certain people. My reasons are based on reason. My reasons are based on their actions. So it's not prejudice. Prejudice was definitely the wrong word. It all boils down to eternal life. There are people right now trying to socially engineer our culture. We should all be trying to socially engineer our culture in a way that is going to increase our odds of living forever. The last thing we want is a freaking race war. And we don't want a war against the genders. We don't want women fighting against men for these petty reasons like a wage gap and all this made up problems that don't even exist. Let's get over it. Let's unite for the common cause of living forever. Because eternal lives matter.